You're live.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the workshop of the Board of County Commissioners for April 11, 2022. All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first thing we have on our agenda today is we have the Unlimited Learning Center here, and we have Greg Felsen and Nita? Nita, I'm sorry? Nita Koppenhafer. So the floor is yours.
Awesome. Good afternoon. Thank you, gentlemen. We're here today, a part of promoting an economic development measure for Montezuma County. As you can see with the memo from Heather Otter with Region 9 Economic Development District, a group of us between Pueblo Community College, the Unlimited Learning Center, Ute Mountain Ute Higher Education Center, Region 9, and CSU Extension have been getting together because we have identified what we feel is a need in our community for CDL A and B licensing training programs with the opportunity to take the driving tests that are required for these tests locally. And so you'll see the memo that Heather did. You'll also, what I handed out to you as well too, was a survey done by Region 9. And it's still ongoing survey. However, can clearly identify the need for the programming here. In addition, I was just down in Toyoak today, meeting with Glenn May and the higher education department there with the tribe, and they'll be promoting a program similar, but all of us together in the sense of showing what is the prospective students tribally, but then also throughout Montezuma County. And with that, I know, oh golly, when I was talking to Shaq about this, just informally in kind of economic development talk that we had, we definitely identified, it was like, oh, could we use the fairgrounds if we had the opportunity to do this? And of course we could, however, for them to be certified, they have to be on a paved lot with markings as well too. And so that's where we don't have that at the fairgrounds. However, we'll talk a little bit more today. Nita will sort of explain the training program, her experience in the area and outside the area of what could be established, but then with that, a bit of coming back to the drawing board if the county fairgrounds was a potential site and the requirements needed to pave an area there that could be used for these driving tests, also for, I know, the sheriff's department, and I believe the fire department as well too does some training as well too. That would be the site for that, and what is presently here and what the talk on that is if we want this for a long-term solution. So I'm going to give it over, and we want to talk more on the program. So appreciate it.
Hi.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We come in Unlimited Learning Center in 2019. Mr. Candelaria, I believe you were here then, and talked to you guys about using the facilities out at the fairgrounds. And was told that that was a very good idea, and that you had used it before with the Pueblo Community College, I believe, had trained out there. But again, we come into the fact that we do have to have it on pavement or cement. And it has to be, the lines have to be painted, they have to be to state certification. And we have a place right now, it's down at Elk Petroleum on the airport road. But that is in really, really sad shape. And I think the only reason the state is passing it and still allowing people to test there is it's the only one in Dolores County and Montezuma County. Okay, so everybody has to use that. So I think that's the only reason it's passed, but it's not gonna go for much longer. It's in pretty sad shape. The blacktop is just tore up, so, that's what happens when you get big trucks in there, unfortunately. But also, we had the Class B. We started out just teaching Class B for the county, and it's grown. We've been doing a lot of Class B and Class A as far as getting the license. We didn't have an A truck to be able to do this, so the U tried. We have been doing a lot of training for them down there with Class B. And then some of the guys go ahead and get the Class A, but we didn't have a truck, so they would have to have somebody that they were gonna go to work for to be able to go ahead and get the final test, the driving part. So, our problem with that is getting a vehicle. We don't have one. When we were here before, it was the same thing. We were using, Mr. Tanner had donated one for us to use for the Class B, but we don't have a Class A truck, so we're trying to get some money for that. Our main thing right now is we're trying to get on, I passed out this one for you guys, and it tells you about all those changes that started February 7th, and to get your license. Okay, it isn't like you can go down and take the test anymore. You have to have a certification. It means you have to go to school first. And then you have another certification to go take the driving test. So we're trying to get on this registry so that we can start doing this. And that one of the things is that we have to have a place for our practice and our testing, to be able to even have the school. So that's very important to us right now, is getting to know.
Nita, could you pull the mic closer? I'm getting comments that people are having a difficult
Sorry.
time hearing you. No problem.
We need to, know that we're gonna have that place. It's to get on this registry and, get this started, it's $5,000 for us to get there. So we're almost there, and hopefully very soon we'll be able to have that. We have temporary place right now. We do have that testing center at Elks. We have Poker Jack, it's called. It's down where the old Nielsen's construction facility was. They are letting us use their area there, and even let us paint on the blacktop. So we do have that, but they're for sale.
Yeah.
I guess is what I want to say. So we don't know how long we're going to be able to use it. So our problem is we need you guys to help us out with this place.
Do you happen to know what their asking price is?
Down there?
Yes.
Oh, I have no idea. And I don't know that the facility is actually, I don't know exactly what's for sale. If it's all for sale or just, part of it. I don't know.
So I have a couple questions. So number one, because I do remember the conversation that we had in 2019, what's the square footage that you have to have?
We're trying to get
because-
there.
On that
Believe it's
memo,
Is it in?
220 feet by 200 feet is the minimum. The bullet points down at the bottom of the memo.
where it says
Okay.
criteria.
Gotcha. So I think at that point in time, we had recommended the facility over at Annex 1. That parking lot is a hard surface parking lot, and it would be big enough, I think, to accommodate 200 by 220, specifically on the east end.
The old city market.
Oh, The only thing we have is we had to paint, remember? We had to paint the lines, they couldn't be covered with something else.
So that leads into my next question, because when, in the past, unless something has changed, as long as you had it dotted to where you could set up cones, like when you do your diminishing clearing or you do your backing, that was all legal and appropriate at that point in time. So I'm not sure if that's changed, because the dots to where you just set up a cone real quick
But you
is,
can't have dots, it's gotta be a total line, and it's gotta be like 8 inches wide, and they have a whole schematic that you have to go by. And that was one of the things, you can't have anything else painted on that, over that, or by that, so that it's not confusing for that driver when he's doing his test.
okay,
So when I called about that, they said no other lines can be on there. That was,
okay.
you know, I think that's why
So then,
when I
back
talked
to the,
Keenan, I believe it was, there was no way we could do it
yeah.
there, so.
And if you have to have the lines delineated instead of with cones, I understand that. Two different things.
Yeah,
Because typically, when they do that, and Rob is here also, when they test, they actually have cones set up, so they
Yeah,
actually
you
know
have
if
to
you
do
break
that
the
too.
line
you have to have the
of
cone.
too far or in
Right.
reverse or too far forward. So, my next question is, what changed? Because it used to just be a hard surface, which could have been an aggregate with magnesium chloride on it. It didn't have to be an actual concrete or asphalt surface. It just had to be delineated, so,
They won't pass it anymore. I don't know what changed or when it changed, but they won't pass it anymore. They have to, it has to be one of those two,
hmm.
so.
Okay,
Where's they, test the school bus drivers? Where do they go?
Usually your school districts have their own trainer and they test them right there, they do it
Okay,
there. Yeah, so usually unless you're talking about city buses or anything like that, are you gonna have that? kind of
Greg, with
training.
the parking lot at PCC, that's asphalted. You think they'd be willing to put together a partnership like that?
well, the issue is if you have it striped for parking, you can't,
Striping, you can't use it.
you can't overlay it, because then that confuses everybody that uses it every day. I understand what you're saying there. I'm just trying, I just did the math, and you're basically 1 acre. You're 44,000 square feet, so 43.5 is an acre.
And the reason for that is in your Class A trucks, part of that maneuvering that you have to do is you have to pull through a straight
Mhm.
pull through, and you gotta be completely out of the cones and the paint, and then you have to back into that. So,
So,
when you take a truck on both sides of that, that's quite a distance.
sure.
You see what?
Do you
what I'm
have
saying?
any recommendations that you've come up with or thought of? I mean, I understand you're using Elk Petroleum right now, but,
Yeah, I don't live here anymore. I live in Fruita. I just come down to teach the classes. So, you know, to me, I'm not around here enough anymore to know.
I'm trying to think of Mancus, Dolores, what do we have?
Not that can give up an acre to just paint that way and leave it.
yeah.
That's,
Yeah, that's what,
To
when we were,
get used 3 to 5 times a year, maybe?
so, the only one that I can think of right now is there's a parking lot that sits in Dolores that sits just to the south of the high school. It's a pretty good sized parking lot, and I don't think that's striped at all.
I wonder what the city'd be willing to do with this parking lot back here. That's not striped very good.
You have too many medians in it.
That's what I was gonna say, there's a lot of
You don't
planning,
have-
landscaping.
They like their medians.
There's that one, and then there's one just south. No, that's not right.
If Walmart
Well, you
would go
can't.
for it, the old one, but you'd have to get rid of all that diagonal parking.
Which might work, which was gonna be my next suggestion. If we could, I think, Maley still owns that, right?
Tom
The
Maley.
building
Yeah.
out there, Tom Maley. the old Walmart out in the plaza, because I know that a lot of that striping is starting to just fade away and disappear anyway. That would actually be a really good place, because there's a lot of room there for a lot of traffic.
Who owns
Realizing
that?
Tom
Tom
Maley.
Maley, I'm pretty sure,
Yeah.
still owns it.
I think his
Um,
office is over in that real estate building by the driver's license office.
Insurance.
I think
The
his son
insurance
Ryan
office.
is managing that for him.
Is he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Don't
How
hold
do
me
you
to
spell
that.
the last name?
Maley.
MOUSE. Sorry.
I mean, just off of the head, off the top of my head, those are the places that I could think of, and then maybe the Forest Service building up off of 184, but I'm sure that's probably all striped for parking also.
Yeah.
And other than that, I don't think we have any, I don't think the county has any other,
And I was trying to talk to Justin out at Fairgrounds as well too, it's like, yeah, if we do stripe something like that, and like you said, not using it a whole bunch of times, but using it for a purpose, what are some other events, other things that people would rather have pavement instead of a dirt, gravel, parking lot? Because he did identify an area just, I guess it would be southeast of the, outdoor arena. Of some, you know, if something needed to get paved, that would probably be the spot, at the fairgrounds.
Is the port of entry big enough?
mm-mm.
No.
Okay.
And they have too much traffic coming in and out of there anyway.
And we are working with,
To set it
I
up.
mean, you know, PCC, the tribe as well too, is that's the thing, getting industry and finding vehicles that would come down. I think you guys know the need for drivers
Oh, yeah.
in the
Oh, the-
country right now.
The need is huge.
Huge. And if we're getting in a new travel center and different stuff like that, and people wanna stay and move to a beautiful area, but don't have to go outside to get good work and good jobs, this is an opportunity for that. But yeah, we'll keep searching for a great place, but if it,
Could we practice out there even though it's not blacktopped or anything? Is that?
As long as you clear it with the fairgrounds manager and he
Yeah.
doesn't have something else going on, I don't see why
Yep,
that'd be
I
an
don't,
issue.
I don't see an issue with that, but obviously, like Shaq said, everything, we need to put everything back to the department heads so that they realize what's going on in their
Right.
department. We don't like to circumvent the process of just saying, yeah, the commissioner said, because we don't know what's going on out there. But there is a huge area down there
Yeah.
that can definitely be utilized, if he doesn't have anything going on, so
and that's
you'll
what I
just,
talked to Justin
just have to
about.
check
I
his
was just
schedule to
like,
make sure.
Yeah.
We're doing this, but I didn't confirm on anything, but here's some talks on it that were identified and, to think more about it.
So I'm gonna ask Rob a question since I have a road superintendent here. Rob, what approximately, would an acre hold up out there if we magged it for a while? I know it's not a hard surface per se.
I don't know how you'll ever paint it and make it stay painted without asphalt or chip seal.
Yeah.
I think to do that, but if you could do columns like we always did, that's great.
Well,
Yes.
for practice, if we had to, we could do that. I mean, we have the cones.
Sure,
That's
for
not the
Right,
practice.
and that's,
It's-
that's,
The main problem comes down to when you go to test. We
Right.
would like to have them to be able to at least practice a few times where they're gonna test, so that they're more comfortable. Because you gotta remember, this is just like when you were a teenager and you went to get your permit.
Mhm.
It's the same thing.
I would really recommend the old
Walmart.
Walmart would be probably the best place. It's the biggest, it's all hard surface.
And if we have to, we can paint some of the lines over, with something, so they don't stand out. Just black paint and paint it on there, the white lines that we have to have.
You know,
So-
when I got
The
my
Highway
CDL,
department's been really good to donate that for us, whenever we've been doing the one, we've been keeping the one down at Elk Petroleum up. We've done all that.
when I got my CDL, I tested in Durango, and of course, it was back in the day when they could use cones, but we used the airport. I wonder if the airport the city would be willing to work with you on, I mean, we've got 3 flights a day. I think you could maybe work something out.
That's definitely an option. You have a meeting tomorrow night?
Yeah.
Well, you can reach out to them.
Airport?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Get a hold of
and
Jeremy
I think
down
of
there.
Jeremy.
Yeah, I sat with Jeremy the other day.
There's several of those big yards down there that are being getting more hardly used, those private yards, not asphalt, but
yeah.
practice locations. Talk to one of those, the old Southwest yard, I think Circle Z might be there now, one of them.
And I think that's what they're using is Elk Petroleum right now.
That's across the road on Patrol.
Yeah.
Well, we're not practicing there so much as that's
Just
a test
testing.
center, yeah.
Okay.
We do once or twice at least let them practice where they're gonna test.
And you're still just doing only a Class B certification, but you're looking to move into a
No,
Class A?
well, Sorry. Okay. Uh, Before we were doing Class B, and right now we have to get on this register, and we're gonna get on for Class A and B. Right now, we're doing, in June, a Class A for down on, for the Ute tribe, and we don't have a truck, so they're bringing in a different company with the truck that's gonna do the in-truck training. They will also go through their training to get their certificate, because we aren't on the registry yet. So until we have this worked out, where we have, can do the training and the testing, we kind of are left hanging. But the Ute tribe feels like we have to do a little more training with their people. So I go down and do a book training, and then they do their online training with the other company, and then they come in with their truck and train them. And it's Ute tribe and Marathon
Marathons.
is the other one that's going to be doing it with them. So that's how we're working that. But we would like to be able to do this. There's 5 counties down here that don't have anything.
Right.
There's no training. And the problem with an adult who changes their vocation in any way, or gets a different job, and all of a sudden he has to have a CDL, where does he go?
Yeah, that's,
Because the college in Farmington is 9 months. Well, how many people can take 9 months off work and go to school for 9 months?
How long is your program?
Classroom is 6 days. Usually we do a little longer with the Ute tribe. It's usually 2 4-day weeks, and it's about 8 hours, 7.5, 8 hours.
And then what's the drive?
The
Part of
driving
it.
is, they've been doing Class B before, but the Class A is pretty much the same thing. It's just how fast each person is able to get the 5th wheel, how you have to deal with that when you're doing your maneuvers and stuff, and then the clutching, different. So, usually it's about a week to 8 days that we let them drive, and they're not in it all the time, because you usually have more than, 4 or 5, sometimes 6 drivers that go in a class. So each person's getting a couple hours a day, 1.5 hours to 2 hours, that they're driving and doing maneuvers.
If you were able to get some trucks and some side dump trailers, a good project for those students to really learn good on might be transporting wood chips from the ironwood facility to the landfill. They'd get lots of real life
Somebody else was
experience.
talking about- Is that you?
No.
Somebody else was talking about that too, yeah, that would be a good deal. Yeah, we'd love it. If somebody's insurance will let them ride and drive their vehicles, that's our problem that we ran into. So, is their insurance isn't gonna cover them because they don't have the license yet.
they keep
have that.
throwing obstacles in your way, don't they?
Oh, always. The federal government, what can I say? And it's just getting tougher and tougher.
Right.
Just read this compared to what it used to be.
Mhm.
You could, even for the county, it's gonna affect you guys as far as your road department, because you know, a lot of the guys are raised here and they, farmers and ranchers, they have a small place and they work for the county too, because they support their family that way, but they like that life, which is great, you know? But what happens when they retire? Because if there's nothing here, where are they gonna go to get it? And you can go to Grand Junction, but I guarantee you that Sage up there is gonna, they went up, the day that this all changed, they went up $2,000.
Yeah. Oh, I know,
It
it
used to be
changed.
$5,000 to go up there, it was 6 weeks, $5,000. Now it's $8,000.
Okay. Well, those are our recommendations as far as the square footages on the parking lots. I'll check in Dolores tonight when I go to that meeting over there to see how big that is. But I wanna say it's probably an acre. It would just barely be an acre, but I don't think there's any striping on that lot. And I don't know if that's owned by the city or the school. So you might wanna just contact the school district, but I'll kinda put a plug in for you tonight while I'm at that
Awesome.
meeting.
Is that actually paved?
Mhm.
And I'll try following up with the airport and, the old Walmart.
Okay.
Yep.
As well too.
And those would probably be your best ones as far as a hard surface to get that painted. Good luck finding a used truck right now.
Yeah, we're working with Region 9 and.
Region 9 and PCC,
Yeah.
are connecting because they've seen a need
Sure.
of people going into there, and so trying to find that industry that will pay to come down here for that time. No.
And you said you needed 5,000 for something?
To be on this registry, you have
registry.
to have the school has to have a audit, and that
Yeah.
audit costs $5,000.
Yeah. You can maybe talk to Nikki Crowley and see if she has any money for
For
that.
that end.
From the Lore Foundation.
Oh, well, you know, the school, maybe
Yeah.
you can talk to Lee
We'll
about
talk
that.
to her.
Okay.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you
Thank
very
you all.
much.
Yeah,
Thank
appreciate
you very
it.
much.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Okay, we're gonna go from the Unlimited Learning Center and we're gonna go into the Community Food Assessment Project. Ms. Hall?
Hello.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
Hi. I'm Laurie Hall, she's with the Montezuma Food Coalition. And I do bring a follow along sheet for you guys. And get the pages to separate. There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Ian, I didn't bring one.
Thank you, Laurie.
What we're gonna talk about today is, community food assessment work. It's been an ongoing process from.
So I'm gonna have to ask you to either stand at the podium or sit down behind a mic,
This is the last one.
Okay.
It was done.
because otherwise the people on YouTube are not gonna be able to hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so, my name's Laurie Hall. I'm with the Montezuma Food Coalition, and I'm here today to talk about updating a community food assessment that was done in 2013, 2012 and 13. And the reason for doing the update is there's a current effort happening that's funded by the Colorado Health Foundation to do an updated community food assessment that addresses 3 primary goals. One is to increase healthy food access to the community in general. Another is to increase the use of existing food assistance entities, to increase the number of people who are served by these programs such as SNAP and WIC. And then third is to increase the resiliency and the viability of our local farm and ranch business and infrastructure to be able to continue to grow and serve a more diverse group of people in our community. So what I handed you was a list of objectives that were an outcome of the assessment work done in 2012. And there's several objectives here that were defined by a lot of different stakeholders in the community, including Live Well Montezuma, who was at the time the funder and facilitator of the project, the Montezuma County Health Department, the City of Cortez Planning Department, the CSU Extension Office, the Ad Hoc Agricultural Roundtable, and community input. The full assessment is available on the internet. In an effort to define the progress made in these objectives, the Montezuma Food Coalition really appreciates your time today in giving input in terms of where the county stands on some of these objectives, if progress has been made, if it hasn't been made, if it's currently a priority or not. And if the commissioners know of any work that's currently being done in the community, either within county government or outside of county government. We're really looking to gather information from a very wide variety of sources to make as complete a report as possible. One of my goals here is to bring specific suggestions to your attention. Those are these objectives listed. Also to learn about progress made in the last 10 years. And also to contribute to the community development action plan process. I am in contact with Heather Otter from Region 9, as well as Andrea Buglione from Puma, who is a consultant who's working with the county on that roadmap. So I'm going to be really boring and just read through these objectives and just get your comments. And if I can just find out what you guys know and what might be action items that have actually happened, and if there's anything kind of in planning, and particularly possibly part of the roadmap that's in process. So the first one, create land use policies that maintain agricultural acreage county-wide, as well as encourage urban farming, edible landscaping, gardening, and orchards. Build capacity of current producers and attract new producers to the area. Incentivize forage producers to grow food. So if you have any comments or thoughts on that one.
I can talk, and it's obviously it's not by the county as far as the orchard, but that restoration project that they have going on right now, and I guess it has been going on for, I'm gonna say, a handful of years, has done great work on the orchards around here. So that's a pretty big project, and everything that they're doing there. As far as the encouragement of the urban farmer, I think that's something continuing. We had a discussion in our Board of Health meeting last week about just healthy lifestyle, and the messaging that we want to start putting out about a healthy diet. So I think what we're doing with the health department, I think we are getting to that now. As far as the actual gardening or landscaping, I'm not sure about the landscaping or gardening.
We don't have anything in the land use code that says you can or can't do anything with a garden. I mean, I don't think it's government's place to say you can't or that you have to, but I do know that our extension office, offers the master gardener class and all of that to, teach people that are interested in how that they can do that. But as far as the land use code goes, we don't require people to landscape one way or the other at all.
However, that is going to probably end up being a conversation sooner than later. But something else that we do too with the fairgrounds, the CSU, the extension office, is doing canning programs out there in the commercial kitchen that we have, which is all part of food security. So I think with Greg that just left, that's part of the issues or projects that they're working on. So I'll let you go on to the next one.
Great, thank you. Strengthen local food system by decreasing regulatory barriers, increasing training and technical support, increase farmer access to land, capital, and markets, support creation of local distribution and processing capacity.
So I can tell you that we shouldn't have any regulatory barriers in the county at all, as far as I know, as far as agriculture.
Right.
Everything is pretty much wide open there.
We've added another extension agent to help with training and technical support.
Yeah, we
And-
support our farmers market here that's held throughout the summer in our facility parking lot. So it's not a new creation, however, it is an existing creation, and we, that's for all the local distribution of everything that they have.
And as far as supporting creation of distribution and processing, you know, you're probably aware that the commissioners, under some opposition, have approved 2 USDA facilities in the last couple of years. Mr. Nominee's outside of Mancus, and then Mr. Stoutz's facility that he wants to put in on South Broadway, just south of the city limits. So the commissioners have definitely supported those processing facilities.
The new one south of Cortez, is there a time frame for the construction of that facility?
He's remodeling the facility, so I would imagine it would be relatively quickly. I would probably say by the end of this year.
A lot of that depends on how fast the USDA can get approval of different systems he's got to put in.
That's really great news.
It's great news.
Yeah, awesome. Just as a side note, any word on poultry processing? Is there any business
So-
interest there, or?
We've instructed our economic development coordinator to work on trying to get poultry processing as well as greens, and if there's water availability at some point, it would sure be nice to have a cannery to send all our beans to.
Mhm. Awesome. All right, thank you. One other thing in that particular item, access to land, capital, and markets. You know, there's so much land leaving agriculture and going into development. Are the commissioners concerned at all about continued affordability of farmland for people who do want to grow food?
There's always that, but we try not to step into individual property rights the least amount we can.
So you're asking, I'm gonna go back to your first statement. Your first objective is to basically decrease regulatory barriers? Well, on this sentence, you're almost asking us to increase regulatory barriers, which is something that we're not, or I should say, I am not in favor of,
Right.
because a lot of our farmers in our agricultural community, when they decide they're gonna retire and that's what they have is to sell, we don't wanna be a barrier to restrict what they have to do. And wherever it goes from there is really between two individuals.
Willing
that are
buyer, willing seller.
Willing buyer, willing seller. So we don't wanna put regulatory barriers that are going to decrease that.
I am
That
gonna
makes
make a controversial statement here, somewhat controversial, but, you know, as far as keeping land prices down, when land that could be used for agricultural purposes is put into something like a conservation easement that preserves some other aspect of the land other than an agricultural value, for instance, it's open space or it's, whatever the value is, there is then less land that's available for something such as farming or development, and therefore law of supply and demand. When there's less supply, the price goes up. And so I think one thing that's often a frustration is that there is no public comment period for putting anything into a conservation easement. And if it's not something like ag that it goes into an easement for, then the price for any other land goes up because there's less supply out there.
Yeah.
I said that in the most correctest way I think I could.
No, those things all make perfect sense.
Correct.
One thing
You
that's
can borrow
become sort of popular, I think, among some of the younger farmers who are coming into the market is the notion of working together, kind of shared land. I don't know, and this is aside from my questions today, but just kind of a sense of if the county might be open to making some land available for like cooperative farming.
Well, the county
or-
doesn't own any
Yeah,
land.
we don't
We
own
don't.
any land.
That's not
Yeah.
just
We
not
don't.
even something that exists.
Right, we
No.
don't,
No,
all of
we-
our facilities are typically buildings,
Yeah, we don't have
parking
any land
lots,
that's not being used.
but we don't have anything that would be an agricultural
Mm.
purpose that would
Right, just
suit that
wouldn't be
type of a
suitable.
need. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, I'll go to the next one. Sustain a resilient environment through policies that promote conservation and offer protection and improvement of soil and water, which are critical for long-term community needs. Now, this one, I wouldn't necessarily expect that the county would be, take a position or be involved here. But does the county have any kind of public
So,
policy?
Actually,
or-
I'm gonna
Actually,
tell you that
this is
we
the one the
already
county is
promote.
Oh,
involved
this is
in.
the one it
Yeah.
is? Well,
We already
yeah,
promote
great.
conservation, and what do we do as far as soil health and water for consumption? Our Free Out of Pipe program right now, we are, I think the last record that she showed, we had already conserved 750 acre-feet of water just because of eradicating salt cedar and Russian olives.
I'm
So
sorry, what was the number there?
750 acre-feet. And that program started, I think, in 2018. Don't quote me on that, Shaq, you could probably correct me
That's
if I
pretty
was wrong.
close.
Um,
Hmm.
So there's, I believe, 350,000 gallons of water in an acre foot. So it's a lot of water that we have conserved. And then as far as soil health, we have some of the best compost developed at our landfill. So we do that regularly, and we sell the composting down there at our landfill when we have it available. So we are actually doing quite a bit for water conservation to give it back to the ag people, and then helping with soil health because of the composting material that we do provide.
And then I would add on to that for the composting into that. We are developing our Carver field into a 7-acre composting pad. 7 acres of that we'll be using for just compost. And so once that pad is done, then we're going to be trying to get a food diversion program to help the composting food waste. I think you've been a part of some of those conversations, but that will be a difficult ask for, I think, some of the supermarkets and the casino and some of the restaurants who would then, participate in that and have to train their employees to separate food waste from trash and have an extra container and all of that kind of stuff. So, we'd definitely use some support moving forward on that.
So when you say support, would that be like developing partnerships in the community to help facilitate some of the steps that happen before the food waste arrives
Yeah,
at the-
education, outreach, and if some of the nonprofits wanted to provide the extra bins that these facilities are gonna need eventually, kinda like Four Corners Recycling Initiative provides roll-offs for cardboard and paper and whatever. If there's extra roll-offs required at the supermarkets and the casino, having some of those nonprofits step up to provide those would be a great help.
Mhm. Awesome. That's really great news. All right, thank you. All right, next one. Utilize a range of targeted strategies to include public investment, land use planning, and policy that promote active lifestyles and healthy food environments where residents live, work, play, and learn.
I'm looking to our public health because they're the ones that design all the strategies as far as I'll say strategies, not necessarily policies, because that's two different words. You know, for healthy lifestyles.
I'll tell you what, this isn't at the county level, but some of the federal stuff affecting fuel prices are gonna help promote a healthy lifestyle here pretty quick. 'Cause-
Everybody will be on a bike.
Yeah, or on foot.
Right, well, great.
So there again, I think that our public health does a good job. I mean, as far as, you know, promoting active lifestyles, you know, tobacco-free, you know, taking care of yourself, whether it's dental, hygiene. There's a lot that the public health department already does as far as healthy lifestyles. And I'm not, it might be a little bit more in-depth than what you're thinking of, but I do think that they have a lot there.
And the commissioners did support a discussion a couple of weeks ago, and something about a Ride Your Bike to Work Day that they'll be proclaiming at the beginning of May, which will be May 20th.
It was actually more than that. It was, you could walk, you could ride,
You could ride my bike to work and I'll drive.
Awesome, thank you. All right. Enhance community health by increasing availability, affordability, and accessibility of healthy and culturally appropriate foods while decreasing unhealthy food outlets and choices at work at school.
So we have nothing to do with the school systems. So, you know, we talk to those people, but as far as how they're mandated, we don't have anything to do with the school system. I mean, we don't have a lot to do with affordability of food at all.
Although if it's processed locally because of the facilities you've approved, that'll cut down on transportation cost and should increase availability when it's hard to get elsewhere too.
I'm struggling with the term culturally appropriate foods. Would you define that for me?
Sure. We have lots of different cultures living within our borders, and there are traditional foods that different populations prefer to eat, different types of foods that, you know, their grandparents, their great-grandparents handed down recipes or grew themselves in their gardens. So in the case of our neighbors on the Ute Mountain Ute Reservation, you know, those things might be different types of chilies than we normally can get at the grocery store. They themselves process cornmeal, which is awesome to have that right here, and different spices and things that folks of different cultures just traditionally use in their cooking. And in order to keep cultural uniqueness alive in their communities, it's important for them to just be able to find the types of products that they prefer to cook with in local stores. All right. So let's see. Slow and reverse rates of diabetes and obesity and decrease consumption of processed and unhealthy food. This one I'm going to guess goes back to our health department.
It does. Everything, you know, that I've kind of read through, a lot of it, our health department already does, and they do a great job. But here again, and we continue to say this, once people are educated, they actually have to do something with it themselves. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Sure.
So I understand all of the objectives, but they're also subjective too, to the person. So,
Yeah.
if they want to smoke, they're going to go smoke. If they want to go eat unhealthy foods, that's all they're going to do. I mean, it's very hard to take away people's choices. And like I said last week at the Board of Health meeting, that's what we talked about, was healthy living. How can we make ourselves as a community healthier by our education? Because we can't necessarily regulate at all what people do with it. That's their choice.
So, in the case of, working with the health department, is it possible to direct funding to increase, if they want to increase programs or expand programs or start new ones? Is there flexibility in the county budget to funnel more funds to be
Most
able
of
to
our funding
support?
through the health department, I'm glad they're all sitting in here, because if I speak incorrectly, they can correct me, but, there is a ton of money that comes to the state, which the state funds our health department. It's basically a pass-through for the county. So here again, every program that comes down, sometimes it's funded, sometimes it's not funded. I mean, it's, I don't think it's ever 100%. And you can come up and correct me. I can see I must have said something
Just
wrong.
make sure you pull a mic.
But it's kind of like, I think the last time we talked, our tobacco awareness program that was being, or that has been done for a long time, and they pulled the funding for that. Well, use of tobacco is probably not the healthiest thing for anybody. However, is all we can do is educate it. It does become to a choice. So anyway, I'll let the health director speak.
Hi, Laurie. So I just wanted to, not necessarily correct something that Commissioner Candelaria said, but we don't get a ton of money for, sorry, there's not a ton of money for food. So you know about our WIC program, right? Because you work with Delilah a lot. So WIC is barely funded for what we do. The money that we use for our food pantry is a completely, like, we are asking constantly for money to stock that food pantry. So that is an area where we could always use additional help financially. And, you know, Greg's been doing those classes on canning and things like that, and Delilah was doing them as well. Actually, prior to Greg doing them at the fairgrounds, we were doing them over in the senior center for we can only have the capacity for 10 people, and it would fill up in like an hour. And so, you know, doing the canning, the, what is the, not crock pots, Instapots. We've done classes on all these different tools and provide the food for the families, and then they get to take the device home with them and use it on their own. That program can always use additional funding, because again, we ask the Colorado Health Foundation for money, and they give us money depending on what we're asking for it for. So there's not a ton of money to help the food insecurity piece. We have to work to get that. So we can totally use additional funds for that. Okay.
Thank you.
And then I would just say here, I'm just gonna get all kinds of political today, I guess. As far as slowing and reversing rates of diabetes and obesity and decreasing the consumption of processed unhealthy food. With the Ukraine supplying 40% of the world's grain, specifically wheat, if the United States continues to export, I would say pretty soon the prices of ramen and everything else like that is going to be just as expensive as those other healthy foods, making it an either-or situation when people are purchasing.
I don't think it's a matter of the purchasing the foods. I think it's a matter of the knowledge of knowing what is healthy and what is not healthy. I think is really what we see. That's we have become well, I don't want to get into a philosophical discussion here, but we're a society of fast foods, rapid foods, and processed foods, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that takes education from the schools moving forward. So.
Absolutely. All right, thank you. Provide all residents with the tools and resources they need to make healthy eating and active living choices through public health initiatives. I think this does go back to the health department as well. But yeah, I think anything that the county can do to understand this whole problem, and I think Commissioner Candelaria hit the nail on the head. It has a tremendous amount to do with education, and just kind of access to the awareness, and also living in an environment of kind of a personal family and social environment that values healthy food, that looks at eating as a social event and not just a necessity. So there, I think anything that can be done at the county level to build up that kind of base of knowledge and that awareness and that and the education efforts that are already happening, I would just really encourage more and more. We have a long way to go. A third of our kids in this county don't have enough to eat. And in an agricultural community, that just feels like it shouldn't be the case. And I think there's a lot more we can do.
So how do you come up with that data? Where do you get a third of the kids in our county don't have enough to eat? Where's that data come from?
Oh, those come from the Colorado Health Foundation, comes from Nourish Colorado, comes from Hunger Free Colorado. I'd say probably of those, Hunger Free Colorado is the most useful resource for data on levels of food insecurity across the state.
So can you equate that to a number? So
Numbers
1/3
actual
of the kids in
numbers
this
of
community
children
are,
in our county? Yeah.
And we also use the free and reduced lunch, that's a statistic that
Mhm.
we can use. But I don't have the actual numbers on the phone.
Yeah, I can provide you with those. I have them. It's not on
Alright.
the top of my head.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Commit county and city resources to teach children and residents and children how to grow, prepare, and shop for healthy food. Continue to support and outreach of programs that currently provide the services. Become more actively involved with local food campaigns, therefore strengthening their efficacy. I don't think there's any widespread local food campaigns happening now. We have
I mean,
had
the
them in
4-H
recent years.
program helps with teaching kids how to prepare and grow food. And I know the Pinion Project helps families learn to shop for healthy food. And our Department of Social Services spends a lot of money financing the Pinion Project. Go ahead, Melissa. From a mic.
What about the school gardens?
Yeah.
I know that was a big initiative for a long time.
Community garden programs,
Yeah.
Those are there. I don't know that the county in any way funds
No.
those.
you know, they're funded by a lot of nonprofits.
Yeah. But I know that's happening at all 3 schools as far as I know.
It is.
Yeah, that's Montezuma School to Farm project. That's a very successful project and really impacting, hundreds of kids every year. So,
Correct, because you're actually teaching them
Mhm.
what to do, and then what they produce, they can actually have great, healthy foods.
exactly. Yeah, as a side note, a conversation I had with their director last year, they're really looking forward to creating spaces where the kids can take the knowledge that they've learned about growing food into preparing and cooking food. So that's a really neat kind of a next step that I anticipate will happen in partnership with organizations that have facilities where those kids can go and learn those skills. So it's nice to hear them, looking forward to expanding that kind of education.
Okay.
Strengthen community food resilience to threats such as food insecurity, fuel and energy shortages, and cost. So, kind of like what Shaq was saying, prices keep going up. So certainly building more resiliency locally will help our community. I'm part of Southwest Farm Fresh Cooperative, and it's interesting to see throughout the pandemic and since the war in Ukraine, the prices stay the same. You know, they stay virtually the same. They're not affected by, you know, exterior market fluctuations. So that's, I think, another reason. I think by growing as much food for local consumption as we can here, that helps to kind of provides a little bit of equilibrium in the pricing structure that consumers can expect to pay. But yeah, I was just wondering if the county has any thoughts on food resilience.
I really don't. I mean,
I-
off the
I
top of
don't,
my
I mean-
head, it's,
You're talking fuel and energy shortages and cost. You're talking to the wrong people.
The solar farms, there's one approved recently, under construction recently, 5.
yeah, there are
There's
some
3
solar
small
farms.
ones, 2 large ones.
Mm-hmm.
But they're put on hold because they can't get any panels.
Right. Do you have an estimate of the number of megawatts that's gonna produce?
The-
What's said and done?
Big one is,
Big one's 126
120?
megawatts. The other one is right around 100 megawatts. And then the 3 smaller ones are down around 26, 27 megawatts apiece.
That's good. That's good news. So that's something that impacts energy, that we can have some control over locally. All right. Involve a wide range of community members in developing and supporting food-related issues while building community control of food resources through participation in food councils and coalitions. So I think the main question there is, does the county involve itself in food-related councils or coalitions, either locally
really
or
don't.
regionally?
I mean, we do involve ourselves with the senior program. We fund that. That gives all of the food brought into the seniors. So we do support that and fund that. But as
And
far as
our-
developing new issues evolved around food, we really, that's not,
I think the AAA board, which Commissioner Koppenhafer sits on, I think they just discussed or maybe approved the purchase of 5 greenhouses.
That's their objective, that money that was left over from the
ARPA or
ARPA,
CBRF.
to put five different greenhouses around through the county areas, one in Toyoak, one at Ignacio,
Pagosa,
Silverton, and one in Pagosa, and one at Duck Creek.
Well, that's good news. Do you know who'll be operating those greenhouses?
It's gonna be community involvement through the AAA,
Mm-hmm.
and it's mainly for the seniors to produce their own food,
For
for the
seniors?
senior project.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's the object of it anyway.
I might be thinking of the wrong AAA.
yeah, it's not the American Automobile Association. It's the Agency on Area Aging.
Aging.
Thank you. Alrighty. Yeah, I'll look into that. All right. Promote and support local producers and products, including local businesses that contribute to a healthy food system. Build a viable labor force to support agricultural producers. Encourage capacity building of a diverse and resilient regional food system. Encourage collaboration with other regions.
Best thing for government to do is get out of their way.
Which is what we do. We do not
They
get
can
in their way.
overproduce everything.
If
They
it's
just
an,
get out of their way.
if it's an agricultural
take care of it.
product, we're not in their way.
Mhm.
We remove the hurdles that they would have to jump anywhere else, and we don't have that here.
Mhm.
There's actually a bill that was passed last year, I don't have the number off the top of my head, that's actually going to probably cost, local ranchers a lot more when it comes to dealing with their labor.
That's true.
That's this year. Or well,
It
actually,
was
it was
passed
last year. It was
last year, it
passed
goes
last
into
year.
effect next
Right.
year.
It is in effect right now.
Yeah.
Is
You
it?
have to pay overtime at anything over 40 hours, so it costs of everything that we eat is going up in this state. It's a
Okay.
typical deal, what I was just talking about, government getting in the way of things.
So that was a state bill passed last year, and it has
Mhm.
to do with worker rights? Is that,
Yep.
okay,
Overtime.
all right. Okay. Ensure that area schools and institutions serve fresh, sustainably produced food. Promote the development of institutional guidelines and policies that allow preference for local producers and businesses.
I think that's a discussion for school
For the
boards, not
school
Yeah,
boards.
we don't have
Yeah,
any
we don't,
influence
we
over the
don't have
schools.
anything to do with any of that.
Okay, thank you. Increase local supply chain capacity, create jobs, and build long-term economic vitality by promoting development of locally owned processing, distribution, and storage facilities.
And I think we just talked about that earlier, specifically with our USDA facilities that we have approved.
And those were both independent businesses coming to the county for permission, essentially, right?
Correct.
Has anyone approached the county with value-added processing facility, cannery, juicing?
No.
No, we're trying to attract them here, but the one thing we lack on that is water.
So lack of water makes it hard to attract those kind of businesses,
You gotta have a lot of water to can the amount of pinto beans we have.
right? All right, thank you. What about storage facilities? That would be something that would be, a place to hold food as it's awaiting distribution outside of our region?
It's
Anything?
it's never even been an ask of
Hasn't come up?
anybody because they move it as quickly as they can produce it and sell it and it's gone.
Right, right.
So storage has never been a
Hasn't been a need.
conversation.
All right. Provide economic support of next-generation food entrepreneurs, facilitate business and producer incubator programs for all community members and youth to develop skills and cultivate leadership.
I think that is part of the school's objective, and a lot of that goes back to the school to farm too. That's what they're doing, is they're creating the entrepreneurship there, and the incubator programs are already going on.
I think the Cortez Chamber started their business incubator project, so they're up and running.
Okay.
So I think
And then
Mr.
there's-
Koppenhafer said it the best. We get government out of the way, remove the hurdles so that people can go do their business. And then obviously we support them and we want them to succeed. However, there's not a lot we can do to fund it, I guess is probably where you're headed. Just like public health said, a ton, which I'd like to see a ton of money because that's 2,000 pounds of money. I'd like to see that.
That'd be a
But,
lot.
Anyway,
All right. Great. Well, thank you.
Yep.
I very much appreciate your time and your input. That was substantial. Do you have any questions for me?
No, not this time.
Commissioner, no? I think we're pretty well set. I think you have a better idea of what we do as a county, but the biggest thing we do is just get government out of the way.
All right. Very good.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Have a great day, Laurie. Okay, Rob left the room.
And so we got a message that, Mr. Zwicker came in, with a massive bloody nose and had to leave, and so needs to be rescheduled.
Okay.
Not a problem.
So I guess we can just go on to
Maybe.
addition, Board of County Commissioners shall conduct such further
Well-
business may come before.
Is that what you wanted to
Is that-
speak on, Jimmy?
Mr. Porter?
Sheldon asked me to be here, and I don't see him here, and
I can't speak for him, but I can speak to the problem if you let it.
Come on up.
Come on up to the mic and we'll hear what you have to say since it's on the agenda.
Yeah, I showed Rob the message and he left about Sheldon's bloody nose, so.
You wanna sit or you wanna stand?
I just stand, don't be that long,
Okay.
maybe. There above Sheldon's house, the county road and the ditch is too close together. And the bank's real narrow, it's so narrow he can't do nothing but fight the crawdads and moles.
Can you pull that up on the GIS map?
Sure.
Do you have an address, Mr. Porter?
I can't hear you.
Do
My
you,
hearing aids are bad.
do you have an address and we'll pull that up on the map where we can actually see it?
I know where it is, I know where it is anyway. I know.
1200, 12 mile.
Right there where it is, the road's down here, and that ditch is up there, and it's just a rock.
Whose ditch is it?
It's,
It's Sheldon's.
goes all the way around to Sheldon's, and how far does that ditch go on down there?
It goes on down about a half mile probably.
It's right where it comes around that real sharp corner like that. You know where Sheldon
Anyway,
is?
Mm-hmm.
Right before you get to his house, where you go around that corner like that, the ditch is up 6, 8 feet, 10 feet.
the ditch
above.
Yeah.
probably,
It's up.
And it's
Might be
pretty
10
much
foot below the
straight
ditch.
off to the edge of the road from where the ditch is up there, and if it washes out, it just comes right down the road. That's what he's talking about. That's the area he's talking about.
over the years, the creek keeps crowding everything and crowding the county over, and then they're crowding the ditch, and the ditch gets up against the rock, and then the county's gotta try and stop the creek, and over time, it gets where them ditch banks, where that's at, it's real narrow, and it's right on a dead point, and when the water runs over in your westbound lane, and makes a big hole, and even if there's not a hole there, you think there is, and you pull over in that other lane, and you could head on somebody real quick,
So the
Yeah, I
ditch
know
is
where it's-
causing the problem.
or the road. And the ditch was there first,
Mm-hmm.
but the only way it's gonna take care of it is a pipe. And I think over the last few years, they got a approval to put a pipeline in, but maybe financing or something hadn't been done. But my recommendation been all the time, if he could get government funding for it, maybe the county could pay his part, and everybody would be okay before something really happens bad on that turn.
Whose ditch is that? Who?
It's
I think it's a
Sheldon's
private ditch, it's
No, I mean,
Sheldon's
it's-
ditch.
Oh, it's a private ditch?
It's private.
Cause I thought
And
on
there's
the work
not-
that we did down there, there was a
That's the
ditch
Wilson
company.
Ditch Company.
There probably is, how many guys are on that ditch?
a bunch now, maybe 10, maybe more.
But this is different than the Wilson
But it's
Ditch
not a
Company.
company, this is an individual ditch.
It's not like the
Gotcha.
Wilson ditch, where it's a
Okay.
mutual ditch company.
Gotcha, okay.
It's just an individual ditch.
Anyway, that's, the only solution's really gonna be put in a pipe.
If you
If
move,
Mr. Zwicker
move that
don't have
back
the
up
money,
there.
Back up the road here.
Yeah, back up the road, cause you're looking at a different piece of property that he owns. It's, it's right, whoops, where you were at, just. Maybe you're right, yeah. No, that's Thurman's. It's on to the,
Is it further east, isn't it?
yeah, it's further east. It's on further east.
Go back up the road a little
It's
bit more.
almost,
Right there.
go right to this corner, so you can't see where I'm pointing. Yeah, a little bit to your left, where it goes around that corner.
Oh.
Right, that's Sherm's. But Sheldon's, it should be right. Oh, no, that's, maybe I'm looking at the wrong place.
It's okay, I think we can identify it with Rob. So the basic, is you're saying that his ditch is crowded by our road, and the elevations are different.
Yes, and it's, the ditch banks are narrow, there's nothing he can do. He's been fighting it every year, and it just keeps leaves shooting out. Someday it's gonna wash plumb out and be maybe a bigger problem for the road if it runs over, because the creek's coming into the road and there's no way to get away from the ditch.
Mhm.
That creek comes right in there, right out the road, and the road's crowded right up against the ditch, it's up against a cliff,
Yeah, I know where that's
so
at.
there's no way you can move
Huh?
anything really.
I can put Mr. Zwicker back on the agenda next Monday so he can speak
That's
for
fine.
himself, but,
Just put him back on next
Yep.
Monday,
sure.
and hopefully
I
he'll
thought I
be,
seen him come in earlier, but I don't know where he went.
He got a really bad bloody nose and had to go,
Okay, that's
he
fine.
had to leave.
Anyway, that's his problem, and I think he's been talking to RSCS or whatever they're called now.
NRCS?
And I think they had a whole new pipe for the whole length of that lower ditch approved, but I don't think they ever, maybe even had it funded, but didn't have the money available or something.
okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
thank
Well-
you for listening to me.
We'll put him back on the agenda for next Monday, then he can come back in and talk to us then.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Have a great day. Okay, next we're gonna move on who's not on the agenda, but, I had a call from the director this morning and talked to the attorneys, so, we did discuss this in our Board of Health meeting last week, and it has to do with the Regulation 43 and the title of transfer that we were discussing. Apparently, when that was voted on, I guess would have been 2018.
2018 is when we adopted Regulation 43.
So, we then later, I guess that was when you had to opt in and opt out. They
Correct.
adopted it, the commissioner voted that time to accept it.
Correct.
And then we decided to opt out of it after it went on a moratorium for approximately
It
6
went
to
on
9 months.
In 2019, wasn't the more,
Yeah,
right?
so, yeah, you can't.
And then the moratoriums, when did the moratorium start? It was,
February
yeah, of 19.
19.
Yeah, it was only, we had adopted it in 2018, and in 2019, the commissioners decided that they wanted to do a moratorium because they didn't care for the transfer of title that was in there. So, and we were sitting on a moratorium since 2019. So, and I'll just give you the dates of when this was brought back up. So in July of last year, our environmental health specialists came to the workshop with the commissioners and discussed the fact that we were still functioning under a moratorium, and which we could do. However, that was creating issues with realtors, with property owners, with people having lots of questions, because in the actual regulation, it has the transfer of title in place. So it still exists in that Regulation 43 for our local folks. So people were questioning, were we doing this? And we weren't, because of the moratorium. We posted that there was a moratorium on our county website, but that did not stop the questions, the numerous questions, and realtors questioning it too, and rightly so, because the regulation hadn't been changed. So Cody Sprague was our specialist at the time, and he came in and talked to you guys about it. And the conversation, I think the words opt-in and opt-out were discussed, and so anyway, so that was July 12th. And then on July 20th, the BOCC decided to opt out of the transfer of title. And last week at our Board of Health meeting, when the question arose if we were still under a moratorium, I'm thinking, no, we took care of that. We took care of that. And several of us were like, no, we took care of that. Well, after doing a little more digging, we really didn't take care of it completely. So that's why I'm bringing it back to you all, because technically it still exists in the document, in the regulation, that transfer of title is in place. So there is a process about how we go about changing it or get rid of the transfer of title. There's a process in which it's supposed to, we write a draft again, we send it to the state, they do a preliminary approval with their preliminary approval committee, and once we get that, then we make a public notice, we bring it back to the public to get feedback, and then you could make a final decision of where you want to land with it, minus the transfer of title. So Regulation 43 would stay, but the transfer of title is the piece that I think that you all would like us not to do, and so therefore remove it from the document. So, and I don't know if Ian
So,
has.
kind of new to you, Commissioner Koppenhafer, but we did discuss this
Yeah.
for sure last year, and I was pretty sure that we just said opt out of it
Right.
because it was opt in, opt out. Our understanding,
Right.
and leave it. So the first question I have is how many counties are actually opted into that today?
You know, I looked on the website and I did not count how many there are. There's not, I would say there's not that many. I don't know if you looked today, Ian, or if you know, Melissa.
Off the
It's,
top of my head,
it's clearly less, yeah, I was gonna say it's less than half, easily less than half of the counties that do transfer of title.
Yeah, because the last time I looked, it was 16.
Yeah,
So
If
it's changed a little bit, but, and that was kind of one of the other reasons too. If the realtors are gonna do this for something that they have to do, we just felt like leave them, and obviously Melissa, you and I have had a lot of conversations on this. You can look at it one day and the next day it could fail depending on what you have in there as far as consumption. I use 50 gallons a day and Gerald uses 450 gallons a day. It doesn't matter, that's not gonna, so we just felt that, and I was just using you as I'm not saying you're a water hog at all.
Actually, that's exactly what I heard. I don't know if you're gonna put up with that.
Sounded to
or-
me like it, but he's probably underestimating me.
Okay, 550, anyway, that we would just do that. So really, gentlemen, I think we have to make the decision is we have to follow the statute to get rid of it now, which would be just a public hearing,
Yeah.
and then bring it up to actually properly
right, and
opt out.
if I'm looking at the actual statute, it says the local board of health has to submit its proposed regulations to the Division of Preliminary Review at least 30 days prior to public hearing. So what that would mean is we, in environmental health, would make those changes, remove transfer of title, resend it to this Division of Preliminary Review, let them give us their approval that yes, we can move forward with this. We come back and say we have the preliminary, we need to announce a public hearing, so we'd have to do that, and then once that hearing takes place, then you can adopt the final
Right.
regulations.
It still does not mean that a willing buyer and a willing seller cannot do their
Correct.
inspections on their own. That's still
Mhm.
contractual between a buyer and a seller.
Correct.
So, which way, gentlemen? Obviously, we can't make that decision today, but we
Right.
can
Yeah.
discuss it.
Yeah.
Because
guys
it's just a
have-
public hearing, is all
Right,
we have to
just-
do is notice it, go through the process, and in 60
I would
days.
suggest that you go ahead and file for the preliminary.
do you guys want to see that revised document before we send it to the state?
I'd like to see it, Melissa, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
You wanna come?
And I would also like to speak privately with Melissa, Brandy, and Dawn about a complaint I got today about somebody apparently adding an ADU over their leach field.
What's that?
Accessory dwelling
Auxiliary
unit.
dwelling unit. It won't work very long.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah. It won't work very long.
So,
It's just a matter of time.
so I wanna get back to this
Understood.
really
Okay.
quick, okay?
Yes.
So with, we probably will not make the revisions for probably 3 weeks,
Sorry.
okay? Because Melissa is out of town, and Melissa's continuing to work with us, and while I'm on the subject, I might as well introduce, so Brandy McGuire is our new environmental health, yes, so we're excited to have her on board, so she's learning as we go too, but, so in about 3 weeks, we'll send the revised version, after Ian takes a look at it, we'll send it to the state, And then once we get the A-OK to move forward, then we can let you all know, we'll make the public notice and go forward, okay?
We could have a
Sounds
public
adequate.
hearing, decide something for planning.
Well, it'll be listed with planning, I'm sure.
So with that being said, since it is a Board of Health and you only meet quarterly, is that something that you would have to set a special meeting for?
We could,
We,
if we
we
need to.
could.
We didn't talk about that the last Board of Health meeting?
We did.
We did.
We did talk about it.
We talked about it at the Board of Health meeting, but we're not completely cleared up. So that's why we need to do this, so that we are completely cleared up. And I don't know that we want to wait 3 months to do this,
We can have a
Right.
special meeting.
so.
We,
Okay.
yeah, we can have a
Okay.
special meeting.
We'll have to public notice that too.
Got it. What else do you ladies have? Healthy lifestyle?
Every day?
Every day. I like it.
Almost
Every
20 pounds
day,
down.
every day and every way, getting better and better, huh?
Good.
Get rid of my COVID weight.
Holiday weight.
Retirement weight.
Winter weight.
And you guys are packing a lot of weight around.
All right. Well, if you don't have anything else, then I guess, gentlemen, anything else?
No.
Either one of you? Ian, Jack?
No.
Okay. Well, then we will adjourn this meeting.